minions! Today, I've decided to grace you all by giving you a public service. You see, as the ultimate arbiter and ruler of all I survey, one of my duties is casting judgment on the unfortunate masses. To that end, as a supervillain whose moral judgment cannot possibly be questioned, I am in the unique position of being the only right one who can judge if you are, in fact, the asshole. So join me as I go through 5 stories of people who are wondering if they're the asshole and give my final judgment, as well as the punishment. But what if they're not the asshole? Do they still get punished, I hear you ask? Yes, everyone shall get their punishment in due time. Stop looking at me like that. I know you're being horny on the other side of the monitor. Anyway, this is Am I the Asshole for Starting a Fight with My Wife Over Leftovers? I kind of started a fight at my wife over wasting food. She and I had very different upbringings when it came to food. Her family had the disposable income to eat out multiple times per month, and her family would cook large meals, enough to feed an army, basically. And when the food entered leftover territory, the rule in their house was whoever gets to it first gets it. My family was much more money-minded, only eating out on special occasions and cooking just enough for 1 or 2 meals. Takeout was never shared, and if we had leftovers, it was equally distributed. Some would be surprised to learn that this has caused a great deal of dispute in our marriage. My wife does the majority of the cooking, and she likes to order take-in a lot, as we both have demanding jobs. Over our 10-year relationship, she has learned to cook in much smaller helpings, as much of it would spoil. She's not good about eating leftovers. The smell of a lot of cold food makes her sick. So she tries to meal prep or cook just enough to cover 2 meals max, as she knows letting food spoil irks me. When we have leftovers, I always let her know when her portion is still in the fridge. Typically, she tells me to have it if I want it. She has said before that if she were truly coming back for it, she'd write her name on it, or tell me not to eat it as she was saving it for later, but to my recollection, she's never done that. I always tell her that the leftovers are hers, so she can have them, and we go back and forth like that in several rounds. The other night, we had leftover Chinese takeout. Her leftovers, I ate mine. She asked me what I wanted her to cook for dinner, and I reminded her that she has her leftovers. She said, "Oh, yeah, hand it here." So I gave her the container, and I watched her dump it straight into the trash without looking at it. Wide-eyed, I asked her, "What are you doing?" She then proceeds to inform me that she has come up with a new system. If she tells me 3 times that I can eat her leftovers because she does not intend to come back for them, she will throw it out before it spoils. Apparently that was the 4th time I reminded her about the leftovers, so that triggered the disposal. I got quiet to process the fact that she made this decision without talking to me about it. And finally, I said she could have told me she was going to throw it out, that I would have eaten it. She firmly thinks that the statute of limitations expired, as she told me 3 times I could have them, and she could do with them what she sees fit. I would have if I had known she'd toss them instead of conceding and eating them, after understanding I truly didn't mind her eating them herself. I feel like she truly hasn't listened to or disregarded my feelings and upbringing with food. I told her, "Do you," and haven't really talked to her since. So, am I the asshole? Too long didn't read, my wife had decided to throw away leftovers after she offers them to me 3 times, and I don't like wasting food. Yes, it's all well and good, you don't like wasting food. But you want to know the solution to that? When your wife offers you the leftovers, you can eat those. Here's a novel thought that maybe hasn't crossed your mind. She doesn't have to eat those, and she doesn't even want to eat those. You've had 10 years to adapt to that, and you refused. And your position, once you're confronted, is to stop talking like a child. You, sir, are the asshole. Your punishment? You know all those starving children in Africa people keep talking about to try and enforce kids to have food? You get to feed them with your leftovers. Should you not do this with all haste, there won't be enough of you left over to feed them. Anyway, on to our second tale. Am I the asshole for shaming my friend's culture? I have a friend who is really into grounding. I don't know exactly what that is, but it involves being barefoot everywhere you go to feel connected to the world or something like that. I do think this is strange, but I try not to pass judgment or make any comments. The issue is that she's been complaining about foot pain and recently went to the ER. I had to practically force her to the hospital because she refuses modern medicine because she's sort of a hippie. At the hospital, she got diagnosed with trench foot. If you don't know what that is, it's where your foot becomes spongy due to unsanitary conditions. It's incredibly painful, and you should not be getting this if you bathe regularly. When I found this out, I honestly got really grossed out because it's actually insane to have gotten that. I told her it was really gross, and she needs to start wearing shoes to avoid this. She got incredibly angry at me and said I was disrespecting her lifestyle and her supposed culture. Am I the asshole for saying that about her feet? I feel like I could have said it in a nicer way. I just think the whole situation is absurd. Culture and beliefs are wonderful things. Every person's upbringing has shaped them in a unique way that changes the way they look at the world and invites a myriad of interesting discussions. You might learn a lot hearing someone else's opinion, even if you don't agree with it. Science, however, is based in facts, and medicine is usually based in science. So if you're disagreeing with medicine and science, that's not really culture, that's you being an idiot. Because, I know science says I shouldn't be getting spongy trench foot, but I don't know. I like to feel dirt. Is not a culture worth respecting. That's a sign that you are eligible for the Darwin Awards. You are not the asshole. Your punishment? Bury this hippie alive. What? She wants to respect culture and touch the ground. Give her more dirt to work with. Our next story, am I the asshole for not giving a kid a quarter? I went to a Costco and I put $1 in the water machine. I got my quarters, and a little boy came running up to me and asked, "Can I have one?" I figured he'd probably wandered off, and asked him where his mom was, and he pointed to one of the food court tables and said, "I forgot the pennies." The mom was sitting there, just watching, and she had this expectant look on her face, as if it was already a foregone conclusion that I would buy him a water. So I'm pretty sure she put him up to it. I'd seen that look many times over the years, and as a former doormat, it really rubs me the wrong way when people just assume I'll do something. So I said, "No, sorry, go ask your mom." The kid says, "No!" and tries the coin return. It was less "I refuse" and more, "No, that can't be!" And I was starting to feel bad when the mom came to retrieve her kid. She didn't say anything to me, just dragged her protesting kid away after giving me a poisonous look. I could have given the kid a quarter. It would have been a nice thing to do. I might have been the asshole, because normally I don't mind spotting someone and I've offered a few times. But that look. Am I the asshole? Ah, children. So young, so believing the world will give them what they want if they just ask. So not understanding that sometimes when you ask, you might hear the word no, and you'll have to accept that. And if it ended there, it would be fine. But the way the mother was described, that wasn't just a kid who wanted some water. That was a kid who was being taught how to panhandle at a Costco of all places. They'll give you freaking tap water if you ask. Way to stand up to that beggar child. That'll show him, let him go thirsty. You are not the asshole, but your punishment is working at Costco. Enjoy customer service. Our next story also involves precocious youngsters, and it is titled, "Am I the Asshole for Allowing My Son to Watch a Sea Documentary?" Around a week ago, my son and I were having a movie night because it was my day off and my husband was working. So to round it up, about last week, my son and I were scrolling through movies and shows, and Our Planet came up. My son then told me he wanted to watch the episodes about the sea. My son watched it and seemed to enjoy it before going to sleep. My husband asked what I was seeing for movie night when he got home, so I told him what we had watched and we chatted about it for a while. I didn't really expect anything because he didn't look angry or irritated. The day or two after, my kid enthusiastically told us he no longer wanted to be a doctor, and instead wanted to be a sea scientist, a marine biologist, during breakfast. I was happy and gave him encouragement by talking about his potential and options. My husband attempted to be a little supportive, but he was a little stiff and cold. After my son left for school, my husband told me that we shouldn't have watched the ocean documentary. When I was surprised and questioned why, he explained to me that he wanted our son to have a bright future and that I might have ruined it. Our son is on top of his grade, and that I made him distracted to an honorable job. He then said I would be responsible for crushing his dreams because he wouldn't pay any other tuition. I argued that he was still only 9 and that dreams can change. I also advised him to support whatever career path he chooses. We argued back and forth, and I got caught up in the moment and screamed at him to leave. He's been staying at his mother's house for a few days, and yesterday I received text from his mother accusing me of attempting to destroy the lives of my husband and my kid. I acknowledged that I was a bit dramatic and that I overreacted when I kicked him out, but I still disagree and will defend against what he said. Edit. My husband and I are going to talk it through, but I will apologize for sure for my behavior. My son doesn't know anything about this. Kids have big dreams when they're young. When I was 9, I wanted to be a karate dojo sensei. But I also wanted to be a Tyrannosaurus Rex, but only on the weekends. Gotta have time for that karate, I guess. No, of course, I am neither a dinosaur, nor do I teach an Anglo-Saxon version of an ancient self-defense art. Instead, I say things into a microphone and sometimes sing them on my other channels. You see, dreams change over time. And when you're young, dreams will change a lot. Why, in a month or so, little Timmy here might want to be a football player instead of a marine biologist. It's very fickle to disapprove of what your child dreams of and try to push them toward being a doctor or whatever because of their grades, especially when you threaten to withhold college tuition because you don't like the career path, and oh yeah, because your child is fucking 9! The dad's acting like the real child here. Sure, kicking him out of the house might have been a bit extreme, but god damn, who the fuck is threatening a child's future when they're 9? No, you're not the asshole. Your punishment? Fight Shamu. Go teach your son how dangerous the ocean is, and then see if he still wants to dream of saving it. Or maybe fighting it. Whatever he wants, it's his dream. Lastly, yet another story about, precocious, let's keep saying, children. Am I the asshole for not letting my son go out in public until he stops repeating a cuss word he learned? Last night, me and my girlfriend were watching a movie, probably about 11 p.m. Our son was supposed to be in bed and asleep for a couple hours by now, but apparently he woke up and walked out to go use the bathroom, right when a character loudly said, "Fuck." We had the volume lower than normal, but he still heard it. I tried my best to get him back to bed calmly, but he kept asking what it meant. I told him it's a bad word he shouldn't say, and that he doesn't need to know what it means. Apparently, that only made him more curious. It's been about a day later, and we've threatened and given out as many punishments as we can think of. Sit in a corner. We'll take your video games. We won't let friends come over, etc. But he won't stop saying it and or asking what it means. Well, me and my girlfriend wanted to go out to eat. Usually we would take our son with us. However, we decided that we probably shouldn't, as he might say it in public or even to someone, or ask someone what it meant. I don't want to deal with that or have to explain it to someone. I especially don't want to be kicked out of a place because our son is constantly saying obscenities. So for the first time since he was like 2, we got a babysitter. Not a complete stranger, one of our friends that my son has met many times. I knew he wouldn't be happy, but he refused to just stop inquiring about the new word he just learned. He was very upset with not getting to go out to dinner. I told him that we would bring him back food and wouldn't be gone long, and that our friend would watch a movie with him or play with him, whatever he wanted. He wasn't having it. We were only gone for 2 hours, and apparently, when we were gone, all he did was sit in his room and pout. He did eventually get bored and come out to watch TV, but was still visibly upset. Now we're home and we've made some progress. He seems to be mostly over his fascination with the word. Regardless, he's still mad about not getting to go out. I feel like a bit of an asshole, but I don't know. Am I the asshole? Children are very curious creatures. If you give an answer that could be expounded upon with the simple question, why, they will keep asking it until you give an answer that satisfies them. This is a perfectly normal part of development. Also perfectly normal, kids will hear swear words from just about anywhere, and if you think you can control when and where, you are dead wrong. What you could do is explain that it's a very rude word adults sometimes use, but if you don't know what it means, then you shouldn't be using it. Or any other explanation that gets across, hey, this is not a good word for a 7-year-old to say. What you shouldn't do is punish without explaining. Congratulations on choosing the worst way to address a child's curiosity. You're the asshole. And your punishment, I'm going to give that little kid a little squeaky toy. Except it's not a squeaker in there. It will say variants of words that are much worse than fuck. But anyway, those are all the judgments I have time for today. Rest assured there are many more assholes in the world who will be punished. Just maybe not on camera. At least not until I get my death ray operational. Until then, have a wonderful day, and don't do anything deserving of a death ray. Toodles!